one, go. This is awesome. Hey, folks. Good morning, good day, good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. P.L. Stewart, John King Saga channel. It's a rainy Sunday afternoon where I am, in Canada. My incredible guest is in Canada as well. I have the privilege on today's Six Elementals to have grimdark royalty, La Ti Da, with me. Mr. None other than, and again, I gotta hype this. I gotta hype him up. There. Come on, folks. I gotta hype him up. I gotta have him up. Not only is he OG, like self pub because he's paved the way for so much of us. People like himself, Bengali, Dirk Ashton, Rob DeHaze. Like we exist. The rest of us exist as self-published authors because of people such as Michael R. Fletcher, the author of Beyond Redemption, which needs no introduction. We're gonna talk about it as well, and the author of a new release coming out, Dust of the Dead, which I had get jealous, people. I got an arc from Michael R. Fletcher of this book, and it was amazing. We're gonna talk about that too. So, anyways, without further ado, welcome, Michael. How you doing, brother?
I am good, and thank you for having me on. So, whereabouts in Canada are you anyway? Because I have exactly the same weather.
Well, I remember specifically because you were too important. You stood us up. It was Michael. So basically, folks, just so you're aware, one of our mutual good friend, Christian Cameron, Miles Cameron, famous author, famous reenactor, whatever. He rented out the top part of a restaurant in downtown Toronto for a bunch of us to get together. Fletch, Krista Matar, Teo Wong. It was great, and everything was great except there's one thing missing: Michael Fletcher.
I fucked off. I was like, you know what? There's going to be people there, and it was one of those days where I was in the days leading up. I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And then the day came, and I was like, I'm not sure I can people today. I was just, I don't know. I suck socially, at least in real life. Luckily, this is just easier.
It's all right. Yeah, you suck. I missed out on the opportunity to meet you in person. That's what I was pissed off about. That's it. It's all good. Point being, so when I talk about great people, famous authors, etc., I look up, in all seriousness, I really look up to you, man, of everything you've done, your career. You are well known, I think best known, as essentially one of the best grimdark fantasy authors, not just like in general, but just like period, ever, your era, your generation, however you like to put it. I believe that's true.
Sounds crazy to me, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm not the only one that thinks that way at all. I think if you read most of the reviews on Michael R. Fletcher's books, you would see a lot of the same kind of feedback. And people way smarter than me, way more important and way more famous than me, such as Mark Lawrence, for example, like they feel the same. Now, I think though, and you are one of the most fun, crazy, happy, positive, fun to hang around virtually people I know. But yet, and as amazing as your career has been, it is kind of puzzling for me. And we're talking about this bit backstage, how someone who is such a great author and has sold so well and has written all these amazing books and is known as someone so respected in the game and the top of the game is like, why you're not. And again, we talk a lot about indie versus trad. We're all authors. It's all the same. I think indie has certainly gained the credibility, or is gaining credibility deserves in terms of publishing. But I always say, like, why is Michael R. Fletcher not have some 6 or more figure deal that he's just like publishing books for Orbit or Tor?
I agree. This is bullshit.
Yeah, but what's up with that? What the hell's up with that?
It with you, indies. What the fuck?
Yeah, what's going on, man? Like, what's up, bro? Like, no, but seriously, tell the audience, for those of you who don't know, you were traditionally published.
Yep, that was my fantasy debut.
And you are best known for this book. And this book, read my most recent review about the most recent review of Dust of the Dead, that the book that is coming out, which we're going to talk about, where I linked link to Mark Lawrence's article about what is the most grimdark stuff out there. And someone who shall remain nameless, basically they rated it out as the most grimdark. author amongst authors, like, I mean, including Mark Lawrence, right? Like, like Broken Empire, George Arnott, Psychopathic Killer, like, yeah, Michael R. Fletcher topped all that. So, but point being, you're traditionally published, you won the lottery, you got the agent, you got the book deal, you won the lottery several times, you got lots of critical acclaim for this book. So what the hell happened?
So yeah, I mean, critically, the book was really well received, like insane reviews. Now this is going back a while. So that 2015 that came out. That year, end of 2015, it appeared on dozens of best of the year lists. But in terms of sales, it was a flop. And Harper Voyager, I mean, it's a business for them, right? So it did not sell well enough for them to sort of justify buying the sequel, The Mirror's Truth, which I had already written. So that was basically my gateway into self-publishing. Was I had this book, the publisher was like, "You just haven't sold enough copies. We're not going to buy it." And so at that point, it was like, "Shit, I better learn how to self-publish." And that was around the time I was just starting to get to know, Ben Galley, Dirk Ashton, Rob Hayes. Like those guys are the true OG in the self-publishing fantasy world. Like they were in there before I was. They talked me through a lot of the sort of early stages. But that was sort of what sent me into the indie self-publishing scene.
So what was it like? I mean, obviously, you are someone who you persevere, you rise above, and those are so many. I give you credit for so much of that. But now it's okay. Obviously disappointing. You win the lottery twice, three times. You get the agent, you get the book deal, you get published, you're out there, and then it doesn't work out. So now you're gonna self-publish. You got these incredible friends and co-workers in the authors are helping you along. You self-publish your stuff. But what was the landscape like? What was it even like? I mean, back then it's like self-publishing, people thought very, very differently of it. And you were traditionally published and now you're self-published. What was it like? What'd you think? How are you feeling? How did it work?
Yeah. So, I mean, initially so they passed on the book. When that kind of landed for me, I'm as delusional as any author. So when I had a traditional publishing deal with one of the big 5 publishers, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a famous fantasy author. I thought I was done. And so to realize that was in fact not the case, what followed was, I don't know, 4 to 6 months of sort of whiskey soaked depression before my sort of innate stubborn nature sort of, reasserted itself. And, I sort of, I hit, fuck it, I'm just going to keep doing it anyway. So for me, self-publishing, it hadn't been something I'd ever thought about. I was vaguely aware it existed, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know anyone in that sort of, in that world. So it was a sort of a grinding change of gears. But the community, were super welcoming, really friendly, basically held my hand through the process of getting that first book published, The Mirror's Truth. And I mean, that was not quite early days of self-publishing, but things were just starting to change there. But I mean, back then, like Amazon didn't do paperbacks. That was sort of a separate company that I can't even remember what they're called now. There was a separate wing that was sort of handling paperbacks. And so, learning how to set up paperbacks, I got people helping me and friends and stuff. It's kind of amazing. I think I gotta be honest, like, because my first book was traditionally published, that there was a market for book 2. I was following that up. So The Mirror's Truth sold probably far better than I had any right to as a first time indie author. I think had I self-published book 1 like that, it'd have been bloop, I'd have disappeared. No one would have ever heard of me, So it was, for sure, it was a huge boost.
Wow. So And so, okay, so I'm trying to figure out. So it wasn't like, we're talking like basically, yeah, it wasn't like first version of like, Mario Brothers and Pac-Man and stuff, level technology for self pub and industry, but it wasn't, today with AI, right? It was like something still kind of feeling kind of primitive, something that a lot of people weren't sold on, something a lot of people felt was like a much lesser quality, or like, oh, the only reason you're self pub is because you couldn't get traditional published, or
Mhm.
like, so what was the landscape like after? Okay, yeah, and you know what? You Mirror's Truth comes out, it sells well. You're like, okay, so then you're like, were you thinking like, okay, this is the way, like this is the light, or I'm gonna get back, I'm gonna hopefully sell enough and get the attention of trad again that as soon as I can, I'm gonna get right back into like trad. This is the little blip in the road. Like, what was it like?
Yeah, I guess at that point I thought it was quite possibly like a blip, and I was like, okay, the fact that I was able to sell a book to a major publisher, that in theory means that I can write well enough to create a book that they are interested in buying. Um, so I actually landed two books with trad publishers. Swarm and Steel was published by, the hell are they called? Skyhorse in, I think, 2016. I kept on writing because I hated my job. So, like, why not? I wrote Smoke and Stone, the first book in the City of Sacrifice trilogy. And I wrote Blackstone Heart, first book in the Obsidian Path trilogy. I had parted ways with my agent at that time. She was uh, just not into the sort of the darker stuff that I was writing. I landed another agent at a like very high end agency. He represents a good number of like very successful fantasy authors. He shopped those books, and I was like, yeah, I've got like a major agent. I've written a couple of really cool books. I'll get a trad deal again, and I'll be back into that world soon. Totally didn't work. He wasn't able to sell either. And so once again, I was like, I might as well self-publish them. I've written the book, and it's good enough that an agent thought, yeah, I can sell this. I just self-published those, and then that got me writing those two trilogies. So that was a bunch of books that I knew were going to be self-published over the next sort of little while, which was fine. And the Obsidian Path trilogy in particular sold really well. Blackstone Heart came second in the SPFBO that year. That was a huge boost for just sales and visibility. Um, and so I was writing those, and sort of always working on new stuff as well. Basically each time, so every new book that I finish, or in a new series anyway, first book, I send to an agent. Agent shops it. When it is inevitably rejected everywhere, I self-publish it. And I've got to the point where, so with Dust of the Dead, which is coming out tomorrow,
Congratulations.
I got the book all polished, sent it off to my agent, reached out to an artist, Adam Burke, and asked him, I commissioned him to do an acrylic painting for the cover art. So that was happening while my agent was shopping it. I was like, no one's going to buy this. It's not going to sell. I'm just going to assume that I'm going to self-publish it, and I'm going to get that rolling so that the second my agent comes back and says, I've shopped it to everybody, it's not selling, I can go, okay, cool, bam, and get things rolling on the self-pub front, which is exactly what has happened.
Wow. But dude, you've made a real name for yourself as a really well-known and outwardly from the outside looking in, very successful indie author who has a name, in this, certainly in this corner of the book space that I occupy, and is known as, again, one of the best grimdark authors out there. Do you feel your career has it's perhaps not the path that you envision, But do you feel it's still you're still kind of winding up in almost the same place in a way?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know how things could have turned out, had I stayed traditional. But I mean, the reality is I can't really complain. Like my books have sold. Um, the reviews are good. Um, it is really nice having the sort of insane level of control I get to have with the indie side. Um, like, in this era where publishers are churning out AI slop covers for major artists, to be able to find an artist to do an acrylic painting for my cover art, like that made me so happy. Like I have always wanted that. That's one of my bucket list things was I wanted a classic old school painted cover. Like never mind AI, I was like at no digital and got to do that. So that made me super happy.
Yeah, and I mean, you're on the cutting edge of everything for me that is grimdark. Like and I think what I really impresses me and really something I love to see about your career is some of the incredible collaborations you've done with other really, really, really good grimdark authors that are just like, whether it's Clayton Snyder or Elspeth Spark or what's it been like to work with those kind of authors in on grimdark stuff?
Yeah. It's really neat. You have to so our the process changes depending on who you're working with. So with Anna, a Grimdark magazine, they put that together. They created that whole scenario. They put us together. They were like, "How about you guys co-write a book together, a novella?" Um, and so that one was pure chaos, minimal communication back and forth, almost no planning. It was a case of, she'd write a chapter, send it to me, and be like, "There you go, follow that up." I'd be like, "Oh crap, fuck, Jesus, okay." And I'd write, my chapter and send it back to her and be like, "All right, now you take it from there." And so like we kind of never knew what the other was thinking or planning. It was absolute madness. And I mean, you've read Anna. She is sort of this sort of like insane, the insane poet of fantasy.
Yes.
Her her demonic POV in the shadow of the in the shadow of their dying is insane. Like it's completely non-human. And so I think those styles, the way I write, very different. They played off together really well. Clayton, totally different. With Clayton, I was bringing him a world I'd sort of built, a magic system I'd built, and the bones of a plot. And so we were sort of playing in sandboxes I had created. And so the actual story we did together. We sort of we built the plot lines together. We'd plan 3 chapters, write them, plan the next 3 chapters. So it was a lot of back and forth, constant communication, figuring out how we're going to work stuff. We decided on how it was going to end, before we got there, rather than, with Anna, it was like everything explodes and you're like, I think the story might be over. So like just really different sort of structure to how it all happened. But it's a lot of fun.
Wow. Like, and when I think about these collaborations and I think about everything you've written on your own, I'm like, where maybe no. So I'm going to start here. What the heck do you think, as someone who is labeled as Grimdark royalty, as someone who's worked with all these other Grimdark royalty authors, as someone who Grimdark royalty authors say is one of the best Grimdark authors out there, and who fans like me agree? What the hell is Grimdark, and is that how you classify yourself?
Yeah, that's hard. So I never thought of myself as a grimdark author. So when I wrote Beyond Redemption, my fantasy debut, I'd never heard of grimdark. I didn't know the term at all. So when I landed, my agent at the time, the first sort of email she sent back to me, she said, "Oh, the grimdark crowd are gonna love this," and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" I had to look it up because I didn't know what it meant. Um, and so I understand why my books often sort of get pasted into grimdark, and to be fair, like a bunch of them, they are. Um, I think grimdark, people like to say, "Oh, morally gray characters." I'm going to go with that's horseshit. I think it's tone, and it's maybe tone is the only thing that makes it grimdark, because really, like, Dust of the Dead keeps getting called grimdark too, but it's two very different characters,
Yeah.
both trying to do their best. Like, you may or not agree with their morals, but they're not morally gray. They're not flexible. They're really trying to achieve a specific goal, and they're doing their best to do what they think is right. So it's on that front, like, oh, is it grimdark or is it heroic fantasy? I don't know. But the tone and the world, parts of the world are quite dark. It's quite violent. There's a lot going on. So is it grimdark? Yeah, maybe. Sure.
Well, like, and I think the thing is, like, you famously, and I don't remember, you're gonna correct me on this. You famously, I don't know if it was a response to something, you gave one of the most hilarious and poetic explanations as to what grimdark is, in terms of, like, if you read, a story that has this, it's probably not grimdark, it's, epic fantasy. And if you read this, like, can you just quickly give us a Cole's notes of what you said there, and what that means for grimdark?
Right. So I basically equated, I looked at beer as the definition of all the various fantasy genres. And if the tavern is dark, there's a rotting corpse in one corner and the beer is horse piss, and there's cat whiskers in the stew, you're in a grimdark world. If the beer is frothy and delicious and it's served by a buxom wench, then you're probably in an epic fantasy world. And basically did that for each sort of fantasy genre. And it was purely as a like one-off joke to something somebody said in, I think the Grimdark Facebook group, and years ago, and it took off and had a life of its own. Like, I have seen that shared on Reddit, on Twitter, like all over the place, thousands of times. It's absolutely nuts. And it's hilarious. That little thing is probably the most successful thing I've ever written.
Wow. Wow. And it has become this guideline, basically, for what grimdark is and it isn't. And but I think, this is where I start to go when I, because I gotta say, this book was one of those life-changing books for me. And life-changing in that, in your journey as a reader, and I'm not talking about as a writer, but as a reader, you read certain things that it's like, this book is going to stay with me for the rest of my life. There's certainly certain books that do that to you. I think of the, if you read a lot of books like me, you read thousands of books, every few years. Like, yeah, like, and this was one of them. And I said to myself after I read this, like, what is it about this book that is life changing? And I think for me, like, I had never read a book before I read yours. I read some since then. I read a lot more grimdark. But there's only a few books where I can actually look at the characters and go, these characters aren't worth saving at all. like they're just actually not worth saving. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between a character who's morally great, as you said, or who is, somewhat morally bankrupt, or who is flawed and is fighting for the wrong reasons, or pursuing the wrong goals, or, but there's some shred of, like, salvageability, that's even a word to, but, like, these aren't just like people who are shattered necessarily. These are people who, it's like, you don't want them to win. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want them to accomplish their goals. And that's like, so if you take away all the, like, the body horror stuff that you do, right, with, like, like the madness and decay, and, like, like beyond redemption, like, yeah, okay, the people are sociopaths,
The clue is in the title.
Yeah, yeah, beyond redemption. These people are like, but like they're like you still make us care about them though, and that's where I think you're a real genius, man. Is that you make us care about these utterly friggin' abhorrent people, right? But 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 as well, they're also the world that they're in is so fucked up, like 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 reality shaped by belief essentially, right? And magic is fueled by mental illness. Like this is like, you know what I mean? Like it's not like you're not in Kansas, right? Like this is like really messed up, right? And but yet you do this incredible job of making us care what the hell happens to these people. And it's like, and but I guess my question with when you, why do you write this shit? Like what
Right.
like what twisted mind is in there? Like this smiling handsome guy looks like a professor, you know, like I know he likes metal. Like what's in there, man? That makes
Yeah. So Beyond Redemption, I started writing that in 2008. I was working as an audio engineer, mixing rock bands, like live shows and stuff. It's in kind of a dark place. And heroic fantasy at the time was sort of king. And I got really tired of all these books where it was like, it's all about the character arc. And oh, look at, and this terrible person, and oh, they turn out to be great and heroic, and that there's a million samples. And I wanted to write a book about the people that I saw every day. I was looking around and I'm like, real people don't have a character arc. Real people don't learn lessons. They don't grow. They don't change. They were an asshole when they were a kid. They were an asshole when they were a teenager. And now they're asshole adults. And I wanted to write those characters. I wanted to write those people. I wanted to write a book where at the end, no one had learned anything and everything was as bad or worse than in the beginning. And honestly, like I had the title Beyond Redemption before I wrote the first word. Like that was the theme. That was the whole idea. Uh, the magic system and stuff came from sort of a couple of different sources, but honestly, it was just I think I think why maybe it works. And I can't take credit for like I'm not a genius. Like I can't take credit for doing it on purpose because it's kind of a mystery to me how it works. I think it's because I treat all of the characters like people. They're not characters. They're not there to serve a story. They're not there to serve a plot or to achieve, a specific goal. I in my head they're people. And absolutely shitty, terrible, sociopathic people, the realities they can still be charming sometimes. And if you can kind of catch a little bit of that, if you can catch that edge of humanity in them and show how terrible they are, it's confusing. And for me, that came from having to deal with a sociopath in my life at the time. And I think that kind of shaped part of the way I write characters, part of the way I tell stories.
Yeah, and maybe that's the thing that draws me so much to your work and to the grimdark genre in general is the realism. Like, I've spent the better part of my life working in law enforcement, and you see the best and the worst in people, and it's only point zero zero whatever percentage of the people I've dealt with that are actually, I believe, if you believe the cops were truly evil. Most of the rest of them are just people who have messed up, fallen down or in a bad place, made bad choices, associated with the wrong people, all sorts of things, right? And of course, people who are great, heroic, and doing amazing things too, and sacrifice themselves. And but I think the fact of the matter is I've met plenty of people just like you described who are not going to change, had issues. Those issues have only exacerbated as they've gotten older, are not on a essentially as you would a redemption arc. They're just trying to get through the day, and in some cases not even trying to do that. And I think unfortunately we tend to shy away from, and part of it is our natural human inclination to like, want to think positively, but we're also drawn to the darkness though. I think we're also drawn and compelled by the darkness. Like you cannot read these books, a book by Anna Smith Spark, a book by Mark, and not be like, man, this is. I feel like I'm slimy. I want to take a shower. This is horrible, but I got to keep reading. I got like like part of us is drawn to that, and is it the realism? Is it that we see something in ourselves, or we know? Is it that I can't give you the answers, and obviously it's up to the individual. But there is something about reading books that actually feel like they're real, and that other than just like you said, you know the hero has washboard abs,
Yeah.
like everything is yeah, pristine. Like yeah, there is something to, because that's also part of the world. it, Two things can be true at once. The
Yep.
world is beautiful and it's terrible. Those
Yep.
are both true things, right? So and is that why you think people are drawn to this stuff?
Yeah, I honestly I don't know why. It's bad. It's not something I've put a ton of thought into. I know I am. I know like all of my favorite books were the darker ones. Uh, Joe Abercrombie's stuff, um, uh, Ian Banks. Not so much the culture stuff, although I do love those. But his sort of standard is fiction, like Wasp Factory. Like that is some messed up dark shit, and I love it. Um, and I'm like basically a happy guy, but when I sit down to tell a story, uh, everybody's happy and everything is great and everything turns out okay. That's boring. I want to hear about the shit people are going through.
Yeah, and I also think too, like I think maybe for this, what got me is your specific choice to make this the mental illness aspect, like basically, you know, the most powerful magic users are people who they have these horrible psychiatric conditions, right? Where they have delusions, and they take those delusions and they use the power to rewrite like physics, right? Like they and like again like kleptomaniacs, like dude, and even just like okay stuff like, and I'm not that smart, but like I started like I had some knowledge, especially in my job, of like different types of mental illness. But for example, one of the ones you Cottard syndrome, like you think you're a fucking rotting dead corpse. Like, I mean, like the shit that you use is just when you read it, you're like, oh my god. But then it's so fascinating, right? And even just the learning aspect of like all of these. If you're not someone who's familiar with different types of disorders, you're like, oh my god, like I didn't
Yeah.
know that was a thing, or you know what I mean? It's
It's
like,
a ton of research went into that book. Like I was constantly researching mental disorders, mental illnesses, and then sort of sitting there thinking, how would this manifest? Like if somebody could make that reality, how would that? What are the different ways this could sort of like manifest in that world? A lot of fun. Really fucked up though.
yeah, but also so fascinating and compelling. And like you said, I learned a lot from reading that book. And books that for me, I value books where it assists my overall life education. That means something to me. So I think that's another reason why I was really drawn to that book, and why it's I mean I think it's pretty well one of the most famous books. A lot of people forget that it was traditionally published. They think it was an indie book, but
Yeah.
like because of the fame you've acquired as an indie author. But yeah, like I really have to say, like, wow, like that is a life-changing book, and it made me think differently about the genre. It made me think differently about grimdark and all the possibilities, because I think one of the things I love about it just seems so original. The whole concept is just so unique and original, and like just really it makes you want to step up your game reading a book like that I
Yeah.
think
It's
is
a
groundbreaking.
it's a magic system where the magic isn't magic.
Yeah, and I think it's groundbreaking in that respect. And I think a lot of authors look to we want to see stuff that is groundbreaking, original, avant-garde. Like, wow. And again, so incredibly impressive. So kudos to you and everything that you've written. That series, I have to finish. I haven't finished it yet, but I gotta get back to it. Um, can you talk a bit about the other books that you've written? Like you mentioned Obsidian Path, that's you're very, that's you're well known for that. Like, how many series have you written, man?
So I've got 3 finished series: the Manifest Delusions series, which Beyond Redemption is the first one; City of Sacrifice series, which starts with Smoke and Stone; and then the Obsidian Path, which starts with Blackstone Heart, which I now call a trilogy of 4 books. And then I've got several standalones from Ghosts of Tomorrow, which is cyberpunk; Norilska Groans, which is sort of a noir Russian alt history with a magic kind of. And then Dust of the Dead coming out tomorrow, and The Storm Beneath the World, which is again weird insect fantasy, no human characters in the entire book kind of thing. So I don't know. I like to I want to try different things. And I go where sort of the muse sort of takes me.
Wow. So, are you a full-time author now?
Yep.
So, what is it like earning your bread now as a full-time author? And you sell well, and obviously, you have quite the notoriety in the indie world. What unique set of pressures, probably, with
Yeah,
that.
it's very different. So previously, for the first many years, I was writing. I was working a full-time job at the same time. I hated the job. I was working in a warehouse, basically driving a forklift. I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning so I could write before work. I started writing at work during my lunch and during my breaks. And then I started writing just all the time at work. Anytime management wasn't actually sort of keeping an eye on me, I'd write. And that would piss them off. And my year-end review every year, they'd pull me into the office and say, "You can't keep writing when you're on the clock. Well, that's not what we're paying you for." I'd be like, "Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I got it. I'll stop. I'll stop." But they never fired me. So as far as I was concerned, that meant I actually could keep doing it. So I did. So that was the drive to get out of the warehouse, hugely motivating. Now, I look at my Amazon sales each day, and they're up and down. And now the urge to not be completely destitute is extremely motivating. So you got to keep working. The hard part is, previously I always wrote whatever I wanted, whenever. So if I wrote book 1 of a series and I didn't feel like writing book 2 right away, it didn't matter. I could write book 1 of another series and then come back and write book 2 later. And that's why like all of my series were staggered. Like it's not like I finished one trilogy and then started the next. I think I finished like all 3 of them in 1 year, or over maybe 2 years. But like over the course of 10 years, but book 3 didn't drop until like right at the end. Whereas now I catch myself sort of thinking about like, oh, is this gonna sell? And the funny thing is, I don't know. Like I can't tell. I write a book, I think I like it. That doesn't mean anyone else will. I've got books where I love it. I thought this is it. This is going to be huge. And early reviewers goes, I send out arcs to review sites and they're like, holy shit, this is insane. This is amazing. And then it just never really takes off. It doesn't sell that well. And then I've got stuff where it was sort of a joke, like a one-off. Fuck it. I feel like doing this thing. Dogged, perfect example. And boom, it's selling. And people are freaking out. And now it's in the SPFBO finals.
Yeah,
doing well.
congratulations with that.
And I'm just like, okay, did not see that coming. Had no idea. It was just, I had this neat idea for a story. And so I don't know. I would say I am tempted to write to market, but I don't know how.
Well, I mean, if it's working, I don't suppose it matters if you do,
Yeah, there's
right?
that.
Right. Quickly, so and leading into talking about Dogged specifically, because it is, relevant in the fact that you are currently a finalist. Congratulations in the current iteration of the self-published fantasy blog as SPFBO. For those of you who aren't familiar, and one probably I would argue the premier self-published fantasy contest for independent authors out there.
Yep.
Run by famous international best-selling author Mark Lawrence. He started it, a contest where 10 blog sites take essentially 300 books and they will it down to 10 finalists and then a winner. And, you've had a lot of success in this competition. You've been, how many times in finalists? 2, 3, 4 times?
Three times. So I've entered it 3 times. I've been a finalist all 3 times. Just kind of crazy. And
Yeah.
luck plays a huge part. Like
Yeah.
I got really lucky with which blogs my books ended up with, because not every blog is going to love every book. So, I am aware of and grateful for that luck.
No, and you're that's true. It is true and it is accurate, and you are being modest too, but you also have to be, your book has to be good. I honestly still believe that when we get down to, because the way the contest is run, typically to get to the finals, you become a semifinalist, and then they choose from 3, 4, 5, 6 semifinalists in a blog and most of the time, then at that point, most of the reviewers are having a pass, or a lot of them are having a pass at all the books. And so to be selected, it means you're going through kind of a gauntlet there, right?
Yep.
And then, of course, so kudos to you for having reached that so many times in succession. Tell us a bit about what that experience is like to go through SPFBO in terms of, like, the grind and the competition. And although it is, again, I think it's also one of the most collegial and friendly, and I mean, people make friends in SPFBO in the community. It's very like, I think that's one of the big benefits. But what's it like being part of SPFBO?
Yeah. So it's initially you throw your book in, you have no idea what's going to happen. It takes months. You might go a month or two without any reviews, just while the blogs are, they're reading and, getting their thoughts together. I always start off by saying, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to pay any attention. I'm going to ignore it and write my next book. And inevitably, I'm paying way more attention to it than I am actually writing a book. And there's we've all, I've got friends who are in, they're people who have, known for some of them for years. And so, you see a good review for someone, you're like, you're happy for them, but oh shit, like they got a 9, like, oh my God. And they're the competition. Like, I'm not going to be able to match that. So, there's that competition, but, still friends with people. You make it into the semifinals, and now it's even harder to ignore, because now there's at least a chance you might actually make the finals. So writing takes another hit. I start drinking more and doing less. And then, I mean, every year, just the ones that I've been in, the finalists, everyone comes together. It becomes like its own like little separate community. There's a Discord server where like the 10 finalists, everyone's on there, and we just talk. We talk about reviews. We talk about what else is going on in our lives, like book stuff or not, pets, anything, whatever's going on. It's just this really cool little community. And you want everyone to do really well. You just want to do slightly better than they do, though. But it's a great community. It's a great experience. Like any indie author who is self-publishing fantasy should really be submitting their books each year.
Can you talk about the one thing that, and I think someone really put it well, another finalist, I don't remember who I was speaking to in an interview, put it really well. It's like, You shouldn't be entering the contest hoping that the way so many semifinalists and finalists have gotten book deals on the heels of their success there. You shouldn't be entering for that. But hey, you know what? That's like a pretty great benefit that there could be trad marketing executives creeping, and if your author who is aspiring for a trad contract, sorry, that there's could be actually trad authors or trad editors or agents or publishing executives creeping and going, maybe we'll take a look at this author because of like
For sure, the traditional publishing industry is aware of it. There's by no means is it like a guarantee, even if you were to win. Um, and even if you're offered a deal, may or may not actually be worth it. Um, I think they're more interested if your book is selling really well and you get in, there's a chance you might be offered a deal. This year, one of the finalists, I think she had a trad deal like either just before the finalists happened or like really soon after. But her book was like already doing really well, like selling really well. It's in a genre that's doing really well right now, and that's awesome. It's amazing.
yeah, and there's just so many benefits I think of being part of that contest. But I want to wish you best of luck in the finals. Can you tell us a bit about Dogged? Because I mean, it's hot commodity right now. So what's it about?
All right, so I wrote a short story for Grimdark magazine. It's in issue 37,
Seven.
called "The Last War Dog," and really, I had this idea for a character, and that the story came out of that character. And the character was literally the last war dog. And war dogs are these sort of bipedal, half demon creatures, but very much like with the mentality of a dog. So think of a sentient, intelligent dog, and they're huge, like half again the height of a full-grown man, much larger, much stronger. They are frontline troops for the demon emperor. So I wrote that short story and I loved it. I loved the story. I loved the character. I had so much fun writing it. And then a couple of people in the months afterwards, including Beth at GDM, sort of reached out and said, I would read a novel
Yeah.
in like that. Give me a novel of that kind of thing. And it stuck with me. And so I decided I had to write it. At that point, I realized I wanted to put it in the Obsidian Path world, in part laziness because it meant I didn't have to do a ton of world building for it, but also it already fit really well. So came up with a different character. Um, I had this idea. I wanted to write a murder mystery fantasy novel where, in the part of Sherlock Holmes, we have this demonic war dog who is completely and utterly unsuited to the task. Like, she just can't do it. She's not Sherlock Holmes. She can't do it, but she's like shoved into this role anyway. And I love that idea and then just ran with it. The story, like everything I do, it just sort of took off sideways. And when it ended, I was just like really happy with how it all turned out. So I'm like, that's done.
Wow. And now it's a finalist
Yeah.
in
But it
SMU.
was like written as a like one off. Oh, this is a neat idea. There was no big like, oh, I've got this theme. It wasn't a ton of world building or I'm going to introduce like a crazy new magic idea or any of that. It was just this neat character idea.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Well, again, congratulations. I watched I used to watch the like religiously. I used to watch every single and read every single review that came out of everything. I don't have time anymore, but I do keep up on the contest in general. And of course, got people like you who I admire, like you and Holly and Tinsley and a bunch of people who are great authors. And I always discover a new author I've never heard of that is amazing from at least one from every contest. And I'm like, wow, how come no one reads this because they're like fabulous. And that's invariably, I think that's one of the best things about the contest, that essentially unknown authors gain acclaim and notoriety. That's big.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There are artists, writers like every year who hit the finals. I've never heard of them. You go on Goodreads and their book has only like 10 reviews, and you're like, what the fuck? And you read it and it's amazing. It's such a great way to find new amazing authors.
Yeah, yeah, and so kudos to Mark Lawrence and all the blog sites out there, including my own Before Go blog, and shout out to people like Beth Tabler who've been instrumental in the whole contest, and of course, and now that I'm part of Grimdark magazine myself as well, it's just so great to see how integral you have been, Michael, to the whole Grimdark thing, the whole Grimdark milieu, and it's been fascinating and really rewarding to see how your career has developed. So kudos to you, man. Like
Yeah, it's like I've been adopted by this sort of the crazy subgenre of fantasy, and like I think I suspect I fit in there okay.
yeah, I'd say you do. I'd say you do. So I just put out a review on Before Go blog, coincidentally, on Dust of the Dead. Fabulous book. Thank you so much for the arc. It was a real treat. And it's kind of one of those like, I mean, you gotta know Fletch. He's awesome. Like, it's just like, we had talked about, I was like, hey man, you want to check out this? Like, yeah, sure. And it's like, I'm like, hey man, you want to come on the show talk? I was like, yeah. And he probably forgot about what it was about, but he's like, yeah, yeah, we'll chat. So, but man, it was really, really good and like amazing. And but I have to say, since the review, it's actually not for me, not quite as dark as a lot of stuff I've read by you.
Mhm.
And it was dark as hell. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's dark. But I mean, on a scale, like it, and this is my personal opinion, if you had to rank it, it's kind of like more in the middle-ish to the lower end of like the really fucking dark shit that you read before.
Yeah.
Like, is that true? And was that just kind of the way the story, wound up, or what was the deal there?
Yeah. So I mean, for this one, I had the characters I wanted, and I had the sort of like the basic story. And the one storyline is kind of darker than the other. But I wasn't looking, I mean, I never think about genre when I'm writing. I'm never like, oh, I'm going to write a grimdark novel. Like, I don't think that way. It honestly, and it's not up to me. It's up to the reader anyway. So I don't feel like that's my responsibility to write to a subgenre, but I wanted to have this very specific ending, and I wanted to get to this one moment, where it would all pay off, um, and because of the characters, and Akifa more so,
Yeah.
I just she is not this sort of like brooding, dark, psychopathic. Like she wants to curl up on her chair with a book and hang out at the pub, and she's funny,
Yeah.
um, and is probably schizophrenic. But so I don't pick the tone of my books; the characters do. And so in this story, you've got the one darker plot line, one darker character, and the one less dark character. And there's, I guess some balance in there, or one, they play off each other, one lightens the tone a bit. I don't know. It's not something I sort of like consciously thought about. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to write something that's, less dark.
Yeah, and I think, but at the same time, like, and I said in my review, it had all the hallmarks of like a Michael R. Fletcher book where,
Yeah.
people are gonna get slashed, chopped,
Yeah.
dismembered, and
I
you know,
tend not to shy away from details, but I mean, that's not an attempt to write darkness or be gritty. What I'm trying to do with that is drag the reader into my world. Like I want to take these characters, I want to take the story, I want to basically like jam it into your brain. I want you to be living it while you're reading it. And I think if I'm like fading to black on some of the details, that's allows you to separate yourself a bit. And I don't want to give you that kind of freedom. I want to shove this into your brain.
oh yeah, you did, you did. At least for me, I think. and I want to let you do a quick, like, a quick blurb synopsis of what it's about. But I want to say that for me, especially, and you can imagine why, like, your characters really stuck with me. When you have a character that's basically like kind of like me, old, burnt out law enforcement who's not in the shape they used to be and is just wants to retire. And and like, yeah, I mean, clearly that's a character written for me, right? So and knowing that, like their morality forces them to like take on this thing because of a murder, and they can't let it go, and they have to see this thing through. But
Yeah,
that's essentially like the odds of survival are almost zero or less than zero. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, but they still do it. Like, that is like I fell in love. Like, I fall in love with characters like that, right? So, but anyways, I want to quickly let you tell the audience, generally speaking, what the book's about.
Okay, so there are two storylines that start off just vastly separated in time. There's the sort of current story, which is this retiring sheriff, effectively, of a small town. A couple of children, some twin girls, are kidnapped and stolen into the forest by some really terrifying creatures. She has to go and try and rescue the kids, even though she's like, they're dead. They've already been eaten. This is pointless. But she can't not go. She can't not try. So that's the present. 40 years in the past, we have a young woman who's studying at a university, um, who is sort of dragged into a war kind of against her will. Um, those two storylines obviously eventually are going to sort of become intertwined. It takes some time. And I honestly, I don't like talking about my books. I just want people to read them. I don't want to give anything away, and I'm always worried I'm going to say something that'll spoil it. It's all intricately entwined, uh, and hopefully it all makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a great description. Like I said, go check out not just my review, but the reviews so far. The ARC reviews on the book. I think they're awesome. Mark Lawrence is thrown in, his thoughts. I mean, again, like, and you have your following, your fan base that they're going to read everything you write, like me. So I just think it's an awesome addition to your body of work, and it was just fabulous, man. So kudos, congratulations,
Yeah,
really well
thanks.
done. And can you tell us a bit about release date and stuff like that?
Yeah. So the book is already out in paperback. I released that a couple of days early just because I was like, yeah, whatever. Tomorrow, August 3rd, it'll come out in ebook and on KU for Kindle Unlimited for those folks. The audio book, I think, released yesterday or maybe the day before. So as of tomorrow, it'll be available in pretty much all formats. Um, get it through, your local Amazon flavor. Yeah, in whatever format you kind of like reading or listening to.
Well, congratulations. Happy release day. It is awesome. Go get Dust of the Dead. It is fantastic. And if you're a grimdark fan, and or if you're a Marco R. Fletcher fan, it's required reading, basically. So um quickly, I want to talk a little bit about we were speaking earlier backstage that, like when I said, oh, you're in black and white, you're like, yeah, when I was gonna do the podcasting thing more, I thought I'd do this, and now I can't change it back, which is hilarious. So yeah, so you also have done some really good stuff podcasting wise, with especially with our good dear friend Chris Matar, another brilliant author, SPFPO finalist, best known, of course, for Tainted Dominion and Legacy of the Bright Wash, which has quickly become one of the more well-known fantasy books in the indie sphere out there. And Crystal is just incredible. Can you tell us a bit about the Dripping Bucket and your podcast stuff and what you're doing in that space?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, Crystal and I we keep talking about relaunching the podcast. We keep being too busy with books and family and life. But the dripping bucket was, I think we did it for maybe a year. I can't remember. And basically, we were just talking to indie authors each week. It was fun, pure shits and giggles, no structure, little effort. We were really bad at promoting it. We kept forgetting to mention it on social media platforms. And so we sort of we initially took a break just to say, okay, like let's figure out if we can do this a little more seriously, or if maybe we don't have time. And then since we haven't been able to sort of get it back on going again, the dripping bucket. Are you familiar with the original dripping bucket
So,
idea
well,
story?
I have my understanding of where it comes from, and of course, this is something now it's become viral in a way and taken off a life of its own in terms of the dripping bucket, as in the place. But I want to let you explain that part
So
of it. So,
7 or 8 years ago, I posted on, I think it was Facebook, um, something like, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was like um, a tavern that anybody could use in their fantasy novels? It could be whatever they wanted. You could describe it however you want. It could be nice. It could be dirty, kind of whatever." And we all used, all these different indie authors. We all used the same name. We called it the Dripping Bucket Tavern, and eventually readers would start noticing this tavern appearing in all these different worlds and different universes. Um, and it was, like kind of a joke. I thought it was a neat idea, but I didn't think it would ever go anywhere. But then people started using it, and then like trad authors. A good number of trad authors have used it too. And now the dripping bucket has appeared in dozens and dozens of novels and short stories. Like I can't even keep track of the number of places it's turned up, and it's awesome. It's not mine. I don't own it. Like I keep getting messages from people saying, "Oh, hey, can I use the dripping bucket in my story?" And they're looking for like, "Oh, what does it have to be? How do I have to describe it?" It's like, nope, it is whatever you want. You don't have to ask permission. Just go ahead. And the idea is in the background, it is this interdimensional franchise of taverns that springs up in different universes and realities. Um, Someday, if I ever have the time or the funds, the plan is to do a dripping bucket anthology and get a bunch of my favorite authors to write a dripping bucket story, a story that takes place in their tavern in their world, and put them together in some kind of you know sweet anthology.
that is incredible. The whole concept is just it's just so awesome. I myself have thought, ooh, how can I work in a dripping bucket into my universe? It's gonna happen for sure. But I think the beauty of that is that it's a concept that's brought authors of all different levels of acclaim and popularity and audience, and there's this one common thread running through all these books. And I think that's just stuff for me that I geek out about it. It's just
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. Little Easter eggs like that, little connections. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, that is just amazing. As we're winding down, I would like perhaps, maybe you, as again, Grimdark royalty, someone who is integral to the whole grimdark thing, the milieu, the subgenre, however you like to look at grimdark. Um, can you tell us who some of your favorite grimdark or dark fantasy authors are, and why?
All right. So I'm in my 50s. So I did most of my fantasy reading probably starting when I was about, I don't know, 12. Um, so a lot of my most influential for me authors, they're the classics. Michael Moorcock, uh, Hugh Cook, Dave Duncan, Lewis Cooper. There's a pile of all the classic fantasy authors. Lawrence Watt Evans, huge. Um, those are the ones who sort of shaped, the way I thought about stories. Sort of in more modern terms, um, Mark Lawrence, like I love his stuff. I read Daughter of Crows when it came out. Fuck, like that one just cooked my brain. It was like hands down the best thing I've read in the last couple of years.
Wow.
Like it's it. Mark has a way with words that for me it works. The way he puts a sentence together, his character work, the way he intertwines stories,
Yeah.
I fucking love that. And the indie scene, Crystal Matar, Legacy of the Brightwash. That was the best book I read that year. Was that 2016, 2017? I can't remember now. It's all faded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dirk Ashton's Paterna series, awesome. Rob Hayes, I'm reading a God Eater Herald right now.
Yeah.
And I read the spin-off novel Hammerfall. Fucking awesome.
I got he gave me I remember, I think it was Worldcon, he gave me the coaster, the God Eater coaster.
Yeah, like
So
those are
every day I use it.
So good. Ben Galley is sort of OG self-pub guy, and he's such a sweetheart. He's so fucking helpful.
Yeah.
To the community. There are too many to count. Clayton Snyder, of course, because I've co-written with him a bunch of times. Clayton is what I would describe it. He's like the proper insane writer. He is so much darker than I am. Like it's like you go, "Ooh, dude!" Like, okay, calm down. But it's awesome. Like he is fucking crazy. Love his stuff. He's got 2 or 3 new books in the works right now that are written and in various stages of editing. It's going to be great. It's going to be.
I got
some really cool stuff coming out.
I got to catch up on him on so many, like Luke Tarzan. Like, I mean, the guy's twisted as hell, but I love his prose. Clayton, you mentioned like Anna Smith's Mark Court, I think Anna's. I struggle to decide who, along with January to maybe Guy Gabriel K, has the best prose out there. Anna's up there. I don't know where she is, but she's in that top upper echelon of like, wow. You just reading stuff and go, oh my god, I can never write. I wish I could write like that, but I can't. So
yeah, no, I'm saying
I'll just admire hers. Her prose. But yeah, but I think just know that a lot of us see you as one of the best grimdark and authors out there in the, especially in the indie sphere. So just I hope you get a sense of satisfaction that you have quite the fans out there that love reading your stuff. And I have to catch up. I have my Michael or Fletcher all reserved my indie shelf, but I only have a couple books by you, so I got to catch up. But life is in TBR stuff is, but I will get there, God willing, as long as I'm around. I'll get there. But congratulations on Dust of the Dead.
Thanks.
Go get it. Out now ish. Congratulations on Dogged, current SBFBO self-published fantasy blog off finalist. Good luck in the competition. Hope you pick up the Dripping Bucket podcast again. I thought it was a blast, really funny. I had the privilege of being humbled to be one of the people that you and Chris interviewed. Had a great time with you guys. Just full of laughs. It was awesome. Quickly, and you may not know, and you may not be able to talk about it, but what can we expect next from Michael R. Fletcher in terms of writing?
So I've got 2 books on the go. So I'm writing Determination, which is the sequel to Dogged. That'll should be out later this year, hopefully, if I can get it finished in time. I'm writing another book in the listening world, in the Dust of the Dead world. So Dust of the Dead really is a standalone novel. My plan, vague plan, hopefully, is to write several stories in that world, but each book will be a standalone. I just don't want to do a series right now. I just want to tell a story and be done. And then I've got this absolutely insane science fiction, like far future science fiction idea.
Ooh.
I'm trying to figure it out. It might be too much. I'm not sure if I can actually pull it off. I don't know. I don't know that I can do it. So I'm trying to figure out if it's a story I can actually tell.
Wow. Well, this is all really freaking exciting news. So exciting for all of us who love your work, especially because we get to read a lot more Fletch stuff, but also exciting because every time you write something, like I said, I think it's part of a really groundbreaking stuff in the general dark fantasy world, and also all the grimdark stuff you write. So I'm just really excited. So that is awesome, awesome news. All right. So before we start to really sign off, first of all, thank you so much. So honored and humbled you join me, my friend, for a quick chat. Great to catch up with you. Can you let?
Thanks for having me on, man. I really
Oh,
appreciate
of
it.
course. Can you let the peeps out there know where to buy your books, where to follow you on social media, all that fun jazz.
As for buying books, pretty much everything is with the evil giant Amazon. Just because as a self-published author, that is kind of like the best, easiest platform to reach the most people. On social media, Michael R. Fletcher, kind of anywhere. I'm pretty easy to find. And if you find me in one spot, you can find me in the others. Generally easygoing. I try and respond to people as quickly and often as possible, mostly because it gives me an excuse to not write and to procrastinate. And I do love that. So I probably spend too much time doing that shit.
That is awesome. Quickly, gotta give shout out to, speaking of my man, Epic. How is buddy? How's it going, brother? Always good to see you. Epic is a fantastic booktuber. Check out his channel, especially with the
Yeah,
graphics and
his
animation.
his reviews are insane. He did one for I think Beyond Redemption. Awesome, so cool.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. One of my favorite people in the space. What's up, Epic? Great to see you, brother. He's a huge fan of your work, of course, Fletch. And Epic is a huge grimdark aficionado. So, great to see you, brother. I've actually got to send him a message. I want to make sure he get him a copy of my most recent. I've been privileged to have Epic as part of one of the deep dives into my series on Alicia from Birdie the Books channel, another fabulous booktuber. So it's Epic, Jen, myself, and Alicia we've been diving into my series. So always great to see you, Epic, and check out Epic's YouTube channel. So quickly, P.L. Stewart, author John King Saga, on all the social media handle. It's at P.L. Stewart Writes. So Blue Sky, Twitter X, whatever the hell they call it now, Facebook and Instagram. The website's plstewart.com. The books, 6 books out now. The 7th book, John King Saga. The 7th final book, Intel, is sure still coming out early next year, and that finishes the saga. Also, on YouTube, the John King Saga is also the name of this channel, where I get to interview fantastic people such as Fletch on my 6 Elementals interview series. And I also do an interview series, part of the Page String umbrella, with my fabulous colleague Taylor from Maybe Between Pages, another great booktuber. Check out her channel. And finally, I also am an assistant there with Before I Go blog. Shout out to Beth Tavern and all the crew. And I'm also with Grimdark, same kind of thing. And thanks to Adrian Collins and Beth and everyone there for being awesome at Grimdark Magazine. So I think that's it for me and Fletch. Thank you, everyone who was in the chat and maybe didn't want to, didn't want to chat, but oftentimes, people just like to listen because Fletch is a fascinating guy. Thanks to everyone who's going to watch this on replay. You're what makes this type of long form content amazing. And of course, thanks to my man Epic for popping by. Epic, always good to see you. So we are signing off, and we'll see